Hi, welcome back to my channel. One thing I've learned while I'm writing is that you can't write about something you don't know. For example, if you have never given birth to a child, you could write about it, but trying to explain the pain that the mother goes through during childbirth or the changes to the body, it's not going to be convincing when you write it. You can do research and you could probably empathize with how it might feel, but unless you've actually experienced it yourself, it's not going to come off as genuine. A lot of my stories, one aspect of them deals with loss. And I'm not talking about like losing a race or losing a contest. I'm talking about the loss of someone you love, someone that's dear to you, a mother, father, child, brother, even a pet, something that you really care about, and they die. That's the kind of loss. Some of my characters deal with the family dying. Others deal with facing the world alone, whether it be an ancient world, the modern world, or a futuristic world, but they're alone. They don't have that bond, that closeness with somebody anymore because, that person has passed on. The reason why my writing revolves around that is I've dealt with a loss myself. I've said it a couple of times in past videos, and I figure right now might be a good time to explain what that loss was. When I was 13, my mother died. Shortly after I was born, say a couple of weeks, maybe a month, my mother had her very first epileptic seizure. And I only know this because, she told me the story many, many years later, but that was the first of many seizures that she would have. And nobody else, as far as I know, on her side of the family has epilepsy. She's never experienced anything like it before. Just, she gives birth to me and then, suddenly she starts having seizures. So I used to joke around saying that my birth was the beginning of her death clock. And I know that sounds very morbid, but it's real. I mean, she never had the problem before. There was never any hint of it while she was going through high school. But then after I'm born, she starts having them. Well, the epilepsy that my mom had, she saw doctors to try to get medication to take care of it, and the doctors can never find anything. I mean, the standard medication for epilepsy is phenobarbital and Dilantin, and that's basically the same thing as giving you 2 aspirin for a headache. It's just a standard thing. There's other medications that they can prescribe that will target a more specific area of the brain, but the problem was they can never find out what part of the brain was causing my mom's seizures. She had the EEGs, the EKGs, and the CAT scans, and the doctor said if you had a seizure on one of these, then they would be able to see what part of the brain is being affected. Well, she had 3 seizures on each machine. So that's 9 seizures total during these tests. And the tests all showed that she was normal. You could look out and see that she was having a seizure, but the monitors showed nothing was happening. So basically trying to get medication that would help control my mom's seizures was like spinning the wheel of fortune. Let's see what we get this time. So I grew up my entire life with my mom having seizures. And when I was about 9 or 10, I think, my mom had a doctor's appointment with her neurologist, the brain specialist, and she had nobody to watch me. So she had to take me to the doctor. And I remember in that meeting, the doctor had told her that one of these days, he didn't know when, but one of these days, she was going to have a seizure so bad that she wouldn't have enough brain cells to restart the body. See, every time she had a seizure, it would kill off more and more brain cells. It's the seizures that she had, the grand mal, is like running 10 decathlons in 30 seconds. That's a whole lot of exercise in a very short span of time. She would wake up after having a seizure, disconnected, unsure of where she was. Half the time she didn't even know who she was. Not that she had amnesia, but it took a lot out of her. She wasn't certain where she was at. You know, there was times where she would forget my name, my brother's name, for hours after she came out of these seizures. She knew who we were. I mean, she recognized us, but she couldn't remember our names. So, the doctors, like I said, had said that one of these days she's not going to have enough brain cells to restart the body. And it's kind of like when you get to a car, you put the key in the ignition, you turn it over, and you hear the roar, roar, roar. The car is trying to kick over. Usually it's really quick, and you've got that jolt from the battery, which starts the alternator, which gives enough power for the engine to kick over, and off you go. Well, if you can't get the engine to turn over, you keep hearing a roar, 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 and it starts getting slower and slower as the battery dies out. And pretty soon you won't even have enough battery juice to, you hear a click, 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 but you won't hear anything else happen. That's what was happening with my mom's brain. She had a seizure and they killed off more batteries, more brain cells. So, like I said, the doctor said that one of these days it was going to happen where she's just not going to have enough to restart the body. That day happened when I was 13. Nobody knew when it was going to happen, just we knew it would happen. It was May 4th, 1985, I believe. And May 4th happened to be my mom's birthday. My third dad, who adopted us, went and got my mom a house. See, we grew up on food stamps. I grew up on welfare. I stood in line with my mom to get the government blocks of cheese and the boxes of powdered milk and the big cans of that nasty pork stuff. I know what it's like to be poor. I know what it's like to go to bed with your stomach screaming at you that it wants food. I know what it's like to stand up and have that part of your body just hurt because all the stomach wants to do is just curl up into a ball like this, and you're trying to force it to straighten out. I know what it's like to have that pain of hunger. We grew up, never having anything, and my mom did everything in her power to make certain that we had the very best life that we possibly could. There were times when I know she went without things. She would go without getting a new bra because my brother and I wanted a pair of shoes. She would, not order anything at a restaurant on the very rare occasion we could go out to eat because she wanted to make certain that my brother and I had food. I know she sacrificed a lot for us. She would give the world to my brother and I if we had asked for it. So we lived our entire life in very poor housing, always rented, never owned. So this year, on my mom's birthday, my adopted dad bought her a house. The first one she's ever had. Problem was we had to move from the neighborhood that I knew, that I grew up in, from the house that I knew as my home. And on that day, I was just being a spoiled, rotten little shit. And that's about the best way I can put it too. I didn't care it was my mom's birthday. I didn't care that this was her present. All I cared about was how it affected me. And I didn't want to move. We ended up packing up everything. We got loaded onto a U-Haul. My uncle drove the U-Haul to the new house. And I'm just being a rude and inconsiderate little shit the entire way. I'm mumbling on my breath how much I hated moving, how much I didn't want to do this. And like I said, this was my mom's birthday. You know, I should have been happy for her. She always made a big deal of every birthday for us. I should have at least been happy. I mean, I didn't want to move, but it was her birthday. This was her gift. I should have been happy. We got to the house, and I got to the back of the truck, pulled off my one box that I had, and took that down to my room and started to unpack it. My uncle saw me, and he's the kind of guy that you don't talk back to. He was the kind of guy that if the adult said something, the kids shut up and they did it. There was no back talk. Well, my mom knew how I was. She knew how I was acting that day, and she got in between me and my uncle before anything could be said, any fights could start. And my uncle went back to unloading the truck, and she talked to me, and she said that it would really help out if I could help unload the truck. You know, everything would go a lot smoother. And I told her no. And she said, you know, something like, sweetheart, we really need your help. I said, I don't care. I didn't want to move here. I don't want to be here. I hate you. I wish you were dead. And I slammed the door in her face. I spent the rest of the day. We started moving early in the morning. We got to the house probably about 9 o'clock in the morning, and I spent the rest of the day in my room with my one box, playing with my toys, refusing to help move. That night, you know, we had power turned on to the house, but not much of anything else. We didn't have a phone, and my mom was really tired, really didn't want to cook, but she knew that we needed to eat. And she decided to make one of my favorites at that time, and that was macaroni, cheese, and hot dogs. It was, you know, always brought back great memories when I was a kid, you know, just something I had loved. So she made that for me. Not anything special for her birthday, for me, to try and make me happy, since she knew that I didn't want to move. Dinner was almost ready, and I could hear her walk down the hall to my room. And she knocked on the door and very quietly, very softly said, sweetheart, dinner's almost ready. Why don't you come out and eat with us? Now, my mom was the kind of person who, she had to smack my brothers in my butt a couple of times. She spanked me once with a wooden spoon, and she cried. I didn't cry, she cried. She ended up breaking the spoon over my butt, which I thought was kind of funny, or at least later on I thought it was funny. At that time I thought it was mean, because I thought that she just was beating me and all this stuff. But she cried every time she had to punish us. It hurt her that much. And I've seen on movies and TV shows, you know, the parent says, this will hurt me more than it hurts you. In my mom's case, it actually did. She hated having to punish us. There wasn't a mean bone in this one's body. She would divert her path of travel to avoid stepping on an ant. That's the kind of person that she was. So for her to very politely, very softly talk to me through my door and try and coax me out, it's not out of the norm for her. That's the way she was. You know, I was still pissed off, but which was stupid of me, because there was no reason for me to be pissed. But, you know, again, I was being a selfish little shit the entire day. I stomped out of my room, down the hallway, flopped down in the chair at the kitchen table. My mom set down a bowl of dinner, and I started to eat. I didn't say thank you. You know, they said grace. I didn't care. You know, I was just Like I said, I was being a little shit. Yeah, I was going to make her pay for making me move, is how I looked at it, which was really stupid. But about 5 minutes into dinner, after she took a mouthful of food, she had a seizure. And when you have a seizure, like I said, it's like 10 decathlons all at once. Her whole body locked up. That included the jaw. She has a mouthful of food. Her mouth is clenched shut. We can't clear it out. She chokes on the food. Her face turns blue. I freak out and I run from my house 2 blocks to the nearest convenience store. We lived in this neighborhood many, many years before when I was a little kid. So I knew of the little corner store. I knew there was a phone out there, and we ran, my brother chasing after me, to that phone. I called up emergency services and I told them what was happening. I gave them the address and they said, please stay on the line. I was like, I can't, my mom is hurt. Get there quick. 2 blocks down from the store is the fire department. And we heard the sirens start to wail. We saw the lights start flashing. We saw the ambulance start coming out of the fire station. And my brother and I turned and ran back to the house. So there was 2 blocks that my brother and I ran to the house, 4 blocks from the fire station to my house, and we beat them by 3 minutes. I don't even think my feet touched the ground. But I stood there and I watched. My mom's face was white, just pale white. Her lips were starting to turn a nice blue color. And the paramedics got there. They got her on her back. They took out the scissors and they went from the belly and snipped straight up to the neck, cutting her shirt open. They took the scissors and snipped right between her breasts, and the bra popped open. And believe it or not, that was the first time I saw boobs. Not one of the best times, but my mom's boobs were the first boobs I ever saw. I stood there and I watched as they put electrodes on her chest to monitor her heartbeat. And there was no beat. She wasn't breathing. They did CPR. They were able, the seizure had passed. They were able to get the food out of her mouth. They got her breathing again, and they got her on the gurney and got her into the ambulance. The hospital was about a mile from my house, probably about a 5-minute drive total. In that 5 minutes, my mom died twice in the back of the ambulance. They got her into the emergency room, and while the doctors were working on her, she died again. They kept bringing her back, but she kept dying. The brain kept trying to restart the body, and it couldn't. We got to the hospital after we contacted my grandmother, my aunt, and my uncle. And we stood there and we waited and waited and waited. And they did everything they could. They put my mom into the intensive care unit. And when we were actually able to see her, she had tubes running into her mouth and out her arms. And just, she looked more machine than human at the time. She had so much stuff going in and out of her. And the one thing I remember is the machine that was breathing for her. She kept shaking and having little convulsions the entire time. The doctor said that she was having micro seizures. And what he said was, it was like trying to turn on the computer, and as the computer's booting up, you unplug it. Then you plug it back in, you turn it back on, and it starts to boot up again, and you unplug it. That's how the brain was going. It started to start up, then she would have a micro seizure, which would disrupt everything and shut the brain back down again. So she had to start all over. They said that the next 24 hours was going to be the critical part. I don't think we ever got any sleep. My mom stayed in the hospital on the life support, having the micro seizures. Nobody ever left. Finally, we got word that All that was in the bed was a body. The spirit was gone. There was nothing left. We could keep her on the machine, and she would remain a vegetable her entire life, never waking up, and the machine would breathe for her. Or we could take her off the machine and let nature take its course. The family decided, and we took her off the machine. She went into the hospital on her birthday, and about 8 days later, she died. The last words I said to my mom was, "I hate you." Now I wish you were dead. So my stories deal with loss, because it's something I know. It's something I can write about. It's something that comes through as genuine and natural. It's something I learned that, again, if you want to be a good writer, write about what you know. And unfortunately, I know a lot about death.